This ship has its own hospital, a real one. Operating room, intensive care unit, pharmacy, a full trauma team. It has its own power plant, big enough to run a city, its own airport, a post office, a fire department, barbershops, a chapel, kitchens that serve thousands of meals a day, around the clock. It's a floating city, the largest warship ever built, 100,000 tons, $13 billion, longer than the Empire State Building is tall. So how many people does it take to run all of that? Your instinct says thousands, many thousands. The bigger the ship, the bigger the crew. That's how it's always worked. But the USS Gerald R breaks that rule completely. It's bigger than any carrier in history, and it sails with a smaller crew than ships half its size. The Navy wrote a crew number into this ship that its own engineers said was impossible. Then the ship went lower.
To understand the crew of the Gerald R, you have to go back to a promise made in 2004. When the Navy laid out the requirements for its next-generation carrier, it set a target that was radical for a ship this size. The crew that actually runs the vessel, the ship's company, should number around 2,400 people. For comparison, an older Nimitz-class carrier, which is slightly smaller, runs with roughly 3,200 in its ship's company. The Navy was asking for a bigger ship with hundreds fewer people aboard. A lot of experts thought that was fantasy. The Pentagon's own testing office worried the number was unrealistic. Outside analysts said almost nobody believed a carrier could actually fight, really fight, at full tempo with a crew that thin. The concern was simple. A carrier survives damage because it has enough people to fix it. Cut the crew too far, and who patches the ship when it's hit? So the target sat there for years as a kind of dare. A number on paper that the ship would either hit or embarrass everyone who signed off on it. Today, the Gerald R's ship's company runs at around 2,600 sailors, roughly 500 officers, and 2,100 enlisted. Add the air wing, the pilots, mechanics, and crews that actually fly and maintain the aircraft, and the total climbs to around 4,900 when fully deployed. Those numbers move around, and I'll show you why. But the core is real. The biggest ship in the fleet runs on one of the leanest crews. The question is how.
Here's where the missing people went. The Ford didn't just ask sailors to work harder, it engineered entire jobs out of existence. 4 big systems did most of the cutting. First, the reactors. The Nimitz runs on 2 older A4W reactors. The Ford runs on 2 new A1B reactors, more powerful but deliberately simpler, with far more automation. Fewer sailors standing watch to make the same power. Second, the catapults. Older carriers launch aircraft with steam, which means miles of piping, pumps, and a whole team to run and maintain it. The Ford replaced steam with EMALS, electromagnetic catapults. No steam plant, no steam crew. Third, the weapons elevators.
Moving bombs from deep magazines up to the flight deck used to take cables and a lot of hands. The Ford uses electromagnetic elevators on linear motors, faster and far less manpower. Monitoring. Engineering spaces that once needed sailors watching gauges in person are now covered by digital sensors feeding a central command. Add it up, and you've removed hundreds of billets before anyone sets foot aboard. So who are the 2,600 that stay? Think of the ship's company as everyone whose job is the ship itself, not the aircraft. They break down into departments, and each number is tied to a task, not padding. There's the reactor department, the nuclear-trained sailors who run and guard the 2 power plants, the most tightly controlled job on the ship. There's the air department, the deck crews in colored jerseys who run the catapults, the arresting gear, and the fuel. Even with automation, launching and recovering jets is relentless, hands-on work. There's ordnance, moving and arming weapons, navigation on the bridge, combat systems running the radars and defenses, and a large engineering and repair force that keeps 100,000 tons of machinery alive. Then there's the part people forget, the city itself. Cooks, medical staff, including around 11 doctors and 30 corpsmen, supply clerks, chaplains,
The people who keep 5,000 humans fed, treated, and functioning in the middle of an ocean. Roughly 500 of the 2,600 are officers. The other 2,100 are enlisted. Women serve in every role, from reactor operations to flight deck coordination to bridge command. And here's the thing the raw number hides. 2,600 isn't a lot of people to run all of that. Split across a ship this size, 3 shifts a day, it's thin. Every one of those sailors is doing a job that, on an older carrier, might have been split between 2. That's the ship's company. The air wing is a different story.
The crew number gets confusing for one simple reason. The carrier isn't always carrying its aircraft. When the Gerald Ford is in home port or sailing between missions, it might have only its ship's company aboard, around 2,600. But when it deploys for real, an entire second population moves in, the carrier air wing. That's more than 2,400 additional people. The pilots, but mostly the small army of mechanics, ordnance crews, and technicians it takes to keep 75-plus aircraft flying. Fighters, radar planes, helicopters, and now the Navy's first carrier drone, the MQ-25 Stingray. Add them to the ship's company, and the floating city's population swells to around 4,900. This is why you'll see different numbers everywhere: 2,600, 4,500, 5,000.
They're not contradictions, they're different questions. Ship's company is who runs the vessel. The full complement is who's aboard when it goes to war. So the honest answer to how many people are on the Gerald Ford is, it depends on whether the jets are home. But all of that raises a harder question. Why work this hard to cut the crew at all? Here's the part that reframes the whole ship. On a carrier, the single most expensive system isn't the reactors, the radar, or even the aircraft. Over the life of the ship, it's the people. A warship is bought once. A sailor is paid for every year the ship exists, and a carrier serves about 50 years. And it's not just salary. Every person aboard has to be recruited, trained, sometimes for years in the case of nuclear operators, then fed, given fresh water, a bunk, medical care, and rotated home and replaced over and over for 5 decades. Multiply one sailor by all of that, by 50 years, by thousands of people, and crew becomes one of the largest lifetime costs of the entire program.
Which is exactly why the Navy treated crew reduction as a headline design goal, equal to speed or firepower. Cutting the crew was cutting the bill. The result? The Ford class is projected to save roughly $4 to $5 billion per ship over its service life compared to the Nimitz, and most of that saving comes from needing fewer people. The automation didn't just save effort, it saved billions.
Now the twist. Because this is where that impossible number from 2004 comes back. In 2023, the Navy was short of sailors across the whole fleet. And the Gerald Ford, on deployment, quietly shed 500 to 600 people from its crew and didn't replace them. That pushed the ship's company down to roughly 2,380, below even the original 2004 target that so many experts had called unrealistic. The number nobody believed the ship could hit. It undercut. And here's the part that matters. It kept working. During that same stretch, the Ford's air wing flew more than 2,500 sorties over 9 weeks without a single interruption caused by the ship. The lean crew held. So does that settle it? Not quite, and this is where honesty matters. Running that thin has real risks, and serious people worry about them. A smaller crew has fewer hands for damage control, for the brutal work of keeping a wounded ship afloat and fighting after it's hit.
A carrier can run beautifully with a lean crew in peacetime and still find that margin dangerously tight in combat. The Ford has proven it can generate aircraft with fewer people. It has not yet been tested by battle damage with those same thin numbers. Both things are true at once. The automation works. The sortie record is real. And the true test of a skeleton crew is the day something goes catastrophically wrong. That day hasn't come. When it does, we'll learn what the number really bought. Step back, and the Gerald Ford is a signpost. For 70 years, the story of the aircraft carrier was bigger ship, more people. The Ford broke it. Bigger ship, fewer people. And once you understand why, that people are the largest lifetime cost, the direction becomes obvious. If a sailor is the most expensive system on the ship, then the entire logic of naval engineering starts pushing toward fewer of them. Not because sailors don't matter, because each one costs so much for so long. You can already see the next step on the Ford's own deck. The MQ-25 Stingray, the Navy's first carrier-based drone, flies missions with no one aboard it at all. Around it, the fleet is adding unmanned surface ships and underwater drones. Cheap, crewless, expendable. The Gerald Ford still needs its thousands. But it's the first carrier built on the explicit idea that the crew is a cost to be engineered down, not a number to be maxed out. The next generation won't stop at 2,600. The whole trend line points one way, toward warships that fight with as few humans aboard as the mission can survive. So, why does the biggest warship ever built need only around 2,600 sailors to run? Because the Navy stopped treating crew as a number to maximize and started treating it as a cost to minimize. It set a target its own engineers called impossible, built the automation to reach it, the reactors, the catapults, the elevators, and then, under pressure, went even lower. The floating city we started with is still there. The hospital, the power plant, the kitchens serving thousands. It all runs. It just runs on fewer people than anyone thought it could. Because in the end, the most expensive thing on a $13 billion aircraft carrier isn't the steel. It isn't the reactors. It isn't the jets. It's the people. It always was.